Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And hey, this is the very first show that I'll be doing from the new crib. So, very excited to have today's guest on, gentleman by the name of Carlos Phoenix, and he will explain to he'll tell you his full name here in a second when I bring him on. But he goes by Carlos Phoenix. That's his real name. It's just not his real full name. So, look, I am excited to have this guy share his story because I know a little bit of it, and the little bit that I know is actually mind blowing. This guy has done some unbelievable things. So, without any more from me, let's welcome our guest, Carlos, to the show. Carlos, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you, Ken?
Dude, I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm
Thanks for
really
having me on.
Yeah, well, I'm grateful that you're on because you and I are both kind of in not the same business, but similar as far as technology and stuff like that. So,
Mhm.
I always love bringing people on that are in the same mindset. Is that the word I'm looking for? So,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah. So let's start with you telling everybody where you are from, where you were born and raised.
All right, for some reason, your Skype just kind of froze up a little bit. So,
Oh,
can you repeat the question again?
yeah, sorry. So start with telling everybody where you were born and raised.
Oh, yeah, so I was born in Elmhurst, Queens, in New York City.
Okay.
And now currently I'm in Flushing, Queens, which is hop, skip, and a jump from there.
Okay.
Born and raised. So that's where I'm from.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, thanks for being on.
Thank
No,
you.
no. So okay, you grew up in Queens, New York.
Yeah,
Okay, that's one of the boroughs, right?
that's right.
Okay. I've been to New York to the actual city one time in my entire life. So I've flown in to for layovers and whatnot to
Right.
JFK and LaGuardia, but actually being in the city one time. So I don't really know it that well. So let's talk about what it was like growing up there. What's it like growing up in New York?
Well, okay, so well, we're Latino. My parents had come from Colombia, South America, and they were not rich. So it starts off at a very poor story. It was the neighborhood I grew up in was kind of like the hood in Queens,
Okay.
and so I was like the only light-skinned gentleman in the area that I was living in, and the traumatic story, to make it really quick and short, is we were constantly getting broken into, we were constantly being robbed. When I was a kid, I didn't really have a babysitter, so they'd jump in through the windows when I was a kid, and I'd have to hide in the closet when I was young, and I'd
Wow.
basically like look through the cracks and see what they're taking, that type of stuff. When I was two, and so my parents had a tough time because I had a hole in my heart. Oh, oh, and Skype skipped again.
Wow.
Uh, I had a hole in my heart when I was two, and so they, being poor, had to figure out a way of getting surgery for me. So I had open heart surgery at the age of two, and
Jeez.
and they, not unbeknownst to me, they spent the first 20 years of my life paying it off. So, so to them, it was like paying for college all over again, type of thing. You know what I'm saying? It's like that kind of a burden.
Jeez. That's unbelievable. So that was repaired, I guess. The
Oh yeah, so fast forward, I'm perfectly fine, healthy, and fat.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, I guess that's good, right? so 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 what I mean, so that's a okay, so I'm from a town where there were 85 people in my graduating class in high
Wow.
school. So like there's nothing where I'm like it's tiny, little nothing in the middle of nowhere. Growing up in a city like New York, um, beyond the people like looking through the closet door cracks to see what people are stealing from your home. I mean, what was it like going to school and stuff and like
So yeah, we at first you get the bus to pick you up. You had your average bullies. Your lunch money was taken. All those stories.
yeah.
What 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 I stayed and stuck onto was coloring books. The gifts I would get were like inexpensive gifts, crayons, coloring books, and stuff like that. And that
Yeah.
started kind of sparking my passion for the arts, let's say,
Mhm.
at least in terms of coloring and stuff. So I would actually color in Mickey Mouse and the $6 Million Man and other comic, coloring books, and I would
Steve
start.
Austin.
Right, exactly. And I started doing them photorealistically, understanding shading and lighting and stuff like that. And as I grew up, I decided I was kind of stuck between really enjoying science and math or being an artist. And I kind of went the easy way out. At least I thought it was easy. And I chose to be an artist. And I started studying illustration and painting. So I learned classic painting, oil paint on wood.
Wow.
Uh, you know, there was no technology involved there, so most
And
of my
this
youth
this is as a kid?
yeah, growing up. So I went to the High School of Art and Design in
Wow.
Manhattan, and when I graduated there, I went for 1 year at FIT, and then another 3 years at School of Visual Arts.
Wow.
And at night, I would leave School of Visual Arts and walk over to FIT and attend the night classes there. So I was going to art classes both daytime and nighttime.
Wow. So I didn't know all that. So you Jennifer Williams says Steve Austin, we can
We can
rebuild him.
rebuild it.
We have the technology. I love that show. So something drew you to the arts then. It sounds like at a very early age.
Yeah, it was a part of it was the simplicity, at least my belief in its simplicity.
Yeah.
But then you start learning the geometrics, the golden section, the golden rules of art.
Yeah.
Then I went to Italy when I was 19 with FIT and studied the masters, and that's where it sunk in that this is not something that's a simple escape from school. It
Yeah.
was very passionate. So when I returned from FIT, I realized FIT was not what I was looking for. I wanted something really deep in art, and that's when I quit FIT, walked across the street, across the city, went to the School of Visual Arts, and actually bullied my way into the school. So what that means is I was registering to my classes at FIT, and I walked out and I realized this is not what I want. I went back in, I quit, walked across the city. And when you apply to college, you normally apply months before.
Yeah.
Well, I'm applying to college registration day. So I bullied my way in, and that's a long story, so I'm not going to get into it. But I convinced the president of the school to accept me, and
Wow.
that was no easy task because he kicked me out of the school at least 4 times with security and everything. And but managed to convince him. Uh-oh, and Skype is
I,
skipping
I
again.
I can still hear you. When that
What's
happens
going
on
on?
your end, when you see that happen, it doesn't affect the broadcast for some reason. So
Okay, so it's
yeah,
just maybe a feedback to me. Okay,
yeah,
got it.
yeah.
So yeah, so eventually he said, fine, I'll let you in, but if you tell people, oops, you know, I'm going to deny it ever happened. Anyway, so I attended school. Some of the most amazing teachers who are masters who have stuff hanging in museums were teachers there. Right now, it's a very well-known school for visual effects and special effects in Hollywood. And that was my college years. Part of that, what I didn't mention is that at the age of 15, during high school, I was also working at the largest ad agency in the United States.
What?
And, and so that company was called Wells Rich Green.
Uh huh.
And that was kind of brutal because if you've ever watched Mad Men,
Oh yeah, love Mad
the
Men.
series,
Yeah,
Mad Men is basically the world of advertising
yeah,
back in the day. And when I was in high school, I was looking for a summer job, and my mother was connected to that company, so they basically allowed me to apply. And rather than me being picking up garbage, which is what I was applying for, sweeping the floor, that type of stuff,
Yeah.
they realized I came from that high school and they tested me to see if I can do ads. And back in those days, ads were glue and
Right.
not, you cut out pictures and there was no
Right.
Photoshop, there was no Illustrator. It was
Right.
handcrafted art to be reproduced in the New York Times, Cosmopolitan Magazine, a
Yep.
lot of publications. Our clients were like Ford Motor Company, Sure Deodorant, Pan Am, a lot of like these massive, massive names. And they hired me to do the art, but the art director was not happy about that. He hated me, at least initially, and
Yeah.
would give me like the crappy jobs. He sat me in the corner of the studio and just didn't want to assign me anything.
Wow.
But I ended up working there about 3 or 4 years, and well, eventually I started working on ads and commercials, and I was still a kid. I was going to high
Yeah.
school still.
Yeah. Wow, dude. So in the ad agency world, I've never worked for an ad agency. I'm a somewhat of an ad agency now, but my wife, that was her first job out of college, was with an ad agency. She's a marketing guru, and like she's got some stories, man, like some
Oh yeah.
and we're all about the same age, so um and I'm sure you do, but so here you are in high school, in an arts high school, and you're working at an ad agency also designing ads, right? Like,
Okay. It skipped again,
oh,
so I didn't hear the question.
at that point you're designing ads in this ad agency, right?
Yeah, using rubber cement, cutting
Jeez.
out airplanes and cutting out people, and we did Benson Hedges cigarettes back in the day,
Wow.
uh, Dunhill cigarettes. There's a lot of stories in that. That could
Yeah.
be a whole show in itself. But part of it was, the adults. I was surrounded by adults, and it was brutal. We're dealing with millions of dollars in money, and one mistake. I made one mistake, I think, with a campaign that we were doing, where we were 1/16th of an inch, although we called it agates back in the day, and picas. Everything was just measured in a different language.
Yeah.
But I learned that in high school, so I knew the language.
Yeah.
But I was 1/36th of an inch off, because you glue stuff down, and they had reproduced a certain amount, tens of thousands, which cost them lots of money.
Oh.
And then the art director realized that it was slightly off, and they're very particular. And yeah, it's almost like getting a brutal beating with someone's voice. And as a kid, you're just like, it just rips you apart because
Sure.
it's like your mom and dad are yelling at you, type of thing.
Yeah.
But after work, they would take me out drinking.
Wow.
Back in the day,
Yeah.
we'd go to clubs. I would meet celebrities. We were doing Ralph Lauren, and one of the guys I used to work with in the agency was one of his nephews, and he
Wow.
was like this handsome model looking kind of guy. So we'd go out to clubs. I'd meet Debbie Harry. I'd meet like so many different celebrities at that time. And then when I
Debbie Harry, for
Blondie,
those, yeah,
right,
for those that don't know, call
so
me.
uh, she's a pop star at the time,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
rock.
Blondie.
And then so I started into the nightclub scene at a very early age. Drinking was there, but
Yeah.
when I wanted to get into art, um, I took it very seriously. I'm very passionate about that, especially after coming back from Italy. And I realized that the drinking was kind of affecting all that. So I said, well, I'm more passionate about the art than partying and drinking. So I quit the drinking and never went back. Um,
Just like that.
yeah, yeah. Fortunately, I wasn't an alcoholic at the time, but I realized that, if it kept up, it would have been a little bit weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and maybe I would have made more dramatic art, but I ended up doing science fiction fantasy art anyway. And in my early days, at the age of 19, I'd gone to a Comic Con with only three paintings that I had completed from college, and all three paintings were picked up to be published. So that started my art career,
Wow.
and I was very fortunate because that doesn't happen normally. For a portfolio, you need at least 12 paintings.
Yeah.
So now I'm being published with Crusade, Acclaim, which right now they're doing Magic the Gathering for Netflix. I was doing Magic the Gathering paintings, back in the day, and some Marvel stuff, and other companies that were trying to get into that world. But Marvel was dying at the time, and it was going bankrupt and was closing
Wow.
down. And so I lived in the time when all this drama with the comic book companies were like they were going to die and disappear.
Yeah.
But we know how that turned out,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because of today. And and all that was happening in New York City, and everybody that was involved were all the people I went to college with. So, so it was interesting because all the people I went to college were the artists and stuff that of the comic books that you see that maybe you see now if you've collected back in the day,
Wow.
and that created a very awesome, passionate time of art, and with some of the greatest artists that are alive today.
So you like, I mean, you created comics. Like, you're the first
So,
comic
well,
book
I
artist.
did oil paintings for covers mostly,
Oh,
but
okay. For
I did some
comic books.
books, yeah.
Wow.
So back in the day, there were something called graphic novels, although they still make graphic novels. But I was hired by, let's say, Marvel to do a graphic novel, and but it never came out because everybody got fired at Marvel. So
Wow.
it's like,
There's that.
yeah.
So here you were, so you were working at Marvel, is that right or no?
Well, no, I actually worked at home
Oh.
before these comic. Yeah, I mean, you don't go to Marvel and start painting there.
Oh, okay.
So
That's not
I'd be
how it
working
works.
from home. Yeah, it's all freelance.
Okay.
Hire you. Back in the day, it was fax machines and phone
Yeah.
calls.
Wow.
But getting into the door, I used to do like I would take my paintings and replicate them and put them on magnets because the art directors still use file cabinets to look through artists.
Yeah.
But if my magnet was on the outside of that file cabinet, it'd be an easy way for them to be like, oh, well, there's this guy before he even opens the door.
Marketing.
Totally.
Love it.
hmm I also worked for a variety of different magazines because I was still, doing somewhat of the advertising thing, paste and mechanical art.
Wow.
And I was always drawing and sketching with my friends or alone. And one time I'm in the subway and I'm sketching a woman who's fallen asleep across the train. And there's a gentleman looking over my shoulder saying, "Can you do that for movies?"
Uh,
And of course, working in advertising, I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I could do storyboards and all that type of stuff.
yeah.
So in Subway, he hired me to work on my first film. So he had me come to the studio the next day. It's called Silver Cup Studios for those who might be familiar with Silver Cup. And Gregory Hines was the director of that film.
I know that name.
Yeah,
Wow.
amazing man, great gentleman. And so with Gregory Hines, I worked on doing the storyboards for the film. It did come out on video. I don't remember if it ever came out in theaters. But when I was done, usually you just draw and then you leave.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Wait, but you got a lot of skills here. Would you like to stay? And we can get you to work on the sets or something." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm in my mind, I'm like thinking about money.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
I know, like because I get a lot of people like, "Oh wow, your art is good" or whatever, and they get fascinated with that.
Yeah.
But for me, it's okay. I spent 7 hours painting something, just like you would be like, well, I had to work on this PowerPoint for seven
Right.
hours.
Right.
It's a little bit of the same thing. It's not
Right.
like I'm like, oh yay, I'm drawing and painting. Yay,
Yeah,
this is
right.
it's a lot of focus and concentration and thinking and compositioning and color and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so even though I might be artistic in our view, or some of our artistic friends' view, it's still work. It's still labor.
Right.
So I said, you know what? It's a paycheck. Let me stick around. And
Right.
I remember this guy. His name we called him Fish. Was my art director, and he taught me everything as far as building sets and stuff like that.
Wow.
And I started working in film and commercials and TV shows, and I did that for about 20 years, thanks to him.
So, okay, so how's that? But how you were doing commercials and film and stuff? Like you were hand drawing for these things? You were like doing.
hmm So
Really?
yeah, I mean pencil, and
Yeah.
so the sketches. Then I'd fax it in. They would approve the sketches. I would start the actual painting. I would hire models to come in, and they'd pose nude, and I would then put the costumes on them through my imagination, and all that was done in a bedroom
Wow.
in this very apartment that I'm in now. And so I just I did everything in my in-house studio. The
Wow.
photography, the printing, it was all film. We didn't do digital pictures back then.
Wow.
And then I would use a wood as my instead of a canvas. I was
Yeah.
very into using wood, just for durability and stuff like that. And then I would photograph the art. I would never hand in the original art, so I still own all the original pieces.
Oh my gosh.
And using copyright laws, you do what's called a first print,
Yeah.
which basically gives them permission to print it once,
Yeah.
and then you own the piece from that point on. But clients like Disney or clients like Warner Brothers and clients, the big clients, they won't accept that. They'll buy out the piece, but then remove you from existence.
Yeah.
So
Right.
so Disney and Warner Brothers, those kind of companies will not say that you did anything for them, and
Got
that's
it.
fine.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible, man. So you did that. You said, and you quickly said, and I did that for 20 years, for that
Too many
company.
stories.
Yeah. Right. Let's just skip to the end.
No, so it doesn't work that way. So everything's freelance. So every
Okay.
job is job by job.
I
But
got you.
what's cool was in New York City, the crews become like family.
Yeah.
And so if somebody else has another job, they're like, "Hey, Carlos, do you want to join us on this other gig?" Or so I was
Yeah.
constantly being recommended, and so I just constantly had back-to-back jobs, whether it was a commercial, a music video, a movie,
So
anything like that.
and this has been for all the big ones, right? I'm sure, like Warner Brothers, all of them.
No, actually, I have to say 90% of everything I did was independent, with the exception of the commercials and TV shows.
Okay.
Mostly because you'd have to get into the union if you want to work for the big ones.
Oh, yeah.
And even though I was leaning towards that, the work was so consistent that it was like there was no point to do it.
Right. Right.
So it was mostly independent films. But we would then in the summers play softball with Robert De Niro, or in the
Wow.
summers, New York had this culture of the film companies, big or small, to let's say meet at Central Park and play softball in between days that you're not shooting, stuff like that.
That's incredible, man. So
I miss
Robert De
it.
Niro, how is he at softball?
Okay, you just got back.
Oh, I said, how's Robert De Niro at softball?
Wow, I mean, I was a kid. That's so
Yeah.
long ago. I can
Yeah.
barely remember the games.
Yeah. So along the way, I mean, so far your life sounds incredibly easy up to that point. Like everything came natural and easy and no challenges.
Well, in terms of work, sure. It's still freelance, so there are times when you're just like, oh, everything's quiet for a few months.
Yeah.
If you're paying rent, then that's an issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Relationships were non-existent. Dating was very difficult because when you're working on an independent film, you're working 6 days a week, 16, 17 hours a day. Um,
Jeez.
for you, it's a paycheck, right?
Yeah,
So
right,
that was
right.
life. You've had some heartbreaks and traumas there.
Yeah.
Major heartbreak took me 4 years to get over. So I just focused on just working.
Wow.
There's all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Life still occurs in the process of having work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in when I was 23, 24, I had started a project to try and do the first 3D animated film. And I had come up with an idea due to some music that some friends had made. And within 3 days, I had gotten distribution through Sony for the
Wow.
film. And they heard about it in Hollywood, even though I'm in New York, somehow. And I ended up taking 3 years to try and figure out how to finance this project because I got distribution, so it was a little bit easier. But then I also had to get everybody. I had to become a producer and get the music producers and the animators and stuff. And those days, the computers were hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to do anything animation wise.
Right. Right.
So I was meeting with all the computer companies. I was meeting with all the different animators. How effective or how realistic can the art The um, and as a kid, you don't have those skills of just. And I call myself a kid at 23, 24, but um, there's a lot of knowledge that just was not taught when you're
Right.
just an artist, like how to do a business plan,
Right.
how to run a business, stuff like that. A lot of stuff was missing. So I had another gentleman who was working with people with investments in the UN, and we would then deal with Russian diplomats to
Jeez.
look at financing. And so I would have dinner with the Russian diplomat in Connecticut where he was living, and we'd have dinner there, and he'd be sucking on vodka and talking about this project and potential monies and all sorts of stuff. That was fascinating because it's a different world. Had nothing to do with anything I was doing, but they were interested, and so you just follow the money as best you can.
And that's a I mean, for an artist especially, that like you're I mean, that's different. That's way different. Those are some. And but you were, cuz I know some artists that have never met one single celebrity ever, right? So you're there. In fact, it's probably most artists, quite frankly. But like, so you're here. You are working on these projects with people like Robert De Niro and a lot of
Well, we
these.
we, we played softball, Robert De Niro. I never actually worked with him.
Oh, I got you. I got you. Okay. So, but you've worked around some big celebrities,
Yes,
right?
that's a hat.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, I mean, he's pretty big, but there's definitely bigger ones. But so and along the way, you're freelancing the whole time, but you're making good money, decent money. Did I cut out again?
You did, but I heard decent money.
Yeah, you were making pretty good decent money, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. So certain projects paid, crappy,
Yeah, yeah,
especially in New York City. Other projects, like if you're doing an art project for Disney or you're working on an art project for Warner Brothers, that pays astronomical money.
yeah.
You're working on a 3 month project that could pay well over 100 grand.
Right, right.
So that for me, the money was always a major fluctuation. You could
Yeah.
live off the money for a few years if you do it correctly. But again, in living that type of life, the club scene was a big problem for me because I was constantly spending
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like I would go for $200 lunches
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And there was another thing that wasn't taught very well was investment.
Right.
So investment, how to save, doing real estate, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
For me, it's money in my pocket. If it's in there, let me just see what I can get with it. And so that was a problem.
Yeah, they don't teach that in school. Not very well, at least. So okay, so and this is all in New York City, those 20 years.
That's right.
Wow. And because you before the show started, you told me about a different city. So none of that was in that different city.
No, so now
Wait.
we go to phase two.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because here, I mean, dude, so far you just sound like a boring artist. I'm sorry. I'm
Oh
sorry.
no, I
But,
believe you. You're right, 100%.
like you got okay. So you're out at the club scene. I'm sure you met some women and all that along the way. You did some fun stuff, but like,
Uh-oh.
um, oops,
Okay.
did we cut
Okay.
out again?
Yeah.
Man,
Um,
I had Time Warner here working on my internet yesterday for like 4 or 5 hours.
got
So
you.
we're trying to work out some kinks. I don't know if it's my end or yours, but either way, whatever, we'll get through it.
No problem.
So I mean, again, you were at this place where everything's just kind of moving along swimmingly. You did that for 20 years. That's not scotch, by the way. I asked him before the show. It's iced tea. So everything's moving along swimmingly in your life, and so let's talk about phase two. What was
All right.
and what was the entry point into phase two?
So yeah, so here I am working on films. The last film I worked on was an Argentinian film called An Argentinian in New York, and in that film, it was like a 3 month project. towards the end of the film, I ended up getting into a car accident, and the
Whoa.
car accident basically hurt me pretty bad in terms of my back, my spine. Um, and if you can imagine working on movie sets, a lot of it is lifting up sofas, lifting up wood and walls, and moving furniture around and stuff like that. So I had to quit that film towards the end. It was probably another 2 weeks left, and so I picked up a project with Vibe Records, no, with Jive Records. I'm sorry, Vibe. Jive Records to do an album cover for KRS-One, who is a hip hop artist back in the
Yeah.
90s, 80s, 90s. And so,
KRS-One, also known as BDP, Boogie Down Productions.
and the Church of Hip Hop.
Yep.
Uh, so with him, I had met him a year before. Great person. I knew his producer at the time, and a year after, he loved my artwork so much that he basically twisted the arm of Jive Records to hire me as a cover artist for his for one of his albums. And so I started working on that. But the back pain was so bad that most of the time I was painting, I was on the floor.
Ugh.
Just the pain was ridiculous. So, long story short, that accident knocked out 2 careers. And I left. I
Wow.
left everything. As soon as I was done with that painting, that was it. I realized that my life that I've been enjoying had changed, and that, maybe it was a sign. And I said to myself, okay, well, then let's follow this sign all the way through. I left the industry. I was still in creative mind, so I chose to start getting into production and post production. So I was doing camera work for Good Morning America. I've been doing video editing for Broadway Video, which includes Saturday Night Live, a lot of Showtime sports stuff, um, a lot of MTV stuff, and then I was able to have relationships. So I dated a lot,
Wow.
which then for me, I was like, well, you know what? Maybe this means that I'm supposed to be a normal person and have a girlfriend or a wife or a family. And so I went that path. I met someone, and that eventually led me to Atlanta because her mom lived in Atlanta at the time. And so I shifted and moved there, and then lived a normal life. And I call it normal because it's extremely different from the artistic life. And, worked retail, worked offices, worked, mopping floors, doing stuff that, because what do you say to a normal office or a company or a corporation? Well, I can draw and paint for you.
Yeah, right.
I can
Right.
move your furniture for you. That they don't care. That's not the life that they care about.
Wow.
So it was not easy getting, regular, good, well-paying jobs. I had to, let's say, for example, basically struggle my way up again.
Yeah.
Um,
And how
so
how old were you at that point?
I was, let's see, 28, 29 starting. And then by the time I got married, I was maybe 31.
Okay. Okay.
And now she's never experienced any of my artistic endeavors at all. They're all stories. When you start telling stories like what I told you,
Yeah.
I used to go out to dinner with this actor or this actress. We should celebrate somebody's birthday who's an actor or actress or producer or whatever. Those have become just stories of make believe.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I still had that creativity. I started building my own studio. Now, in that process, in between those years, I had started a company called Realms of Design, and we started doing websites, and the internet was just starting to grow.
Yeah.
We started building $500,000 websites for corporations like Pitney Bowes.
Yeah.
We did Music Match, which was pre iTunes.
Yeah.
We used to do video stuff with Real Player and live streaming uh, with Fubu, and other projects that came around as the internet was starting to change things. And that's where part of what we're going to get into kind of came into play, where I built my own TV studio at home and started doing my own streams with interviews with independent celebrities or independent musicians and filmmakers,
Yeah.
people that nobody would ever know about, but needed the most attention. So
Wow.
kind of like how we're doing this interview,
Yeah.
it's a great way to introduce people to talents.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that probably about 11 years ago. And now I interview Hollywood celebrities, Hollywood, musicians and filmmakers and producers, and on Facebook. and allow people access.
Yeah.
And
Wow, that's
so
cool.
that inspired a business to start selling live streaming equipment. It also started a business where I have two distribution platforms for filmmakers to put their movies in, and where I can put my interviews in, and they can start becoming their own Hollywood without relying on Hollywood for distribution, without relying on the music industry for distribution. We got a deal with Sony, so I can do music distribution with the Orchid. So
Jeez.
independent artists can release music, and then I can interview them. Plus, if they can start their own TV show on my platform, so that people can recognize them as the struggle of being a music artist and releasing albums and going on concerts and the tour. So you get to really see the behind the scenes.
Now is that like what's it called? OTT, that like where it's on Apple TV and Roku and
Right.
all that?
Yeah. So basically, anything like you would normally install Netflix on,
Yeah.
we can be on.
That's awesome.
PlayStation,
Smart
Xbox,
TVs.
Roku, smart TVs, all that type of stuff is included.
Wow. That's really cool, man. So and you started all this in Atlanta.
So to elaborate, I started working on putting this stuff together. I have another platform that's called Sia, where a friend of mine, he's a millionaire, and I had asked him to become my mentor. And as my mentor, he said, "Well, what do you want to start? Like, what do you want to do? Like, how can I help your passion?" And so, of course, live streaming at the time was part of the passion, and movies and all that type of stuff was part of the passion.
Yeah.
So he had already started working on a platform called Sia, and so I'm participating in the growth for Sia. And so we have celebrities on Sia. We do movies with Paramount Pictures every Sunday. So we already had Danny Trejo. We have Kevin Smith coming back in. We have a bunch of actors and stuff that will be hosts of this. So the way it works is you're watching a live broadcast of a show or a feature film,
Yeah.
and we will have four boxes to be able to do what we're doing here. So one of them will be a celebrity, and we can bring anybody in the audience on camera to talk to that celebrity about the film or questions about the celebrity and things of that nature. So the idea is to change the way entertainment and the public can interact by giving them full access, no holds bar.
That's awesome, man.
Hmm.
That's a great idea. Because people are obsessed with that whole celebrity thing. Obsessed.
Right. And through the interviews that I've had, again, very similar to this interview here, is we're trying to humanize the actors. We're not
Yep.
trying to make them like these icons that people see,
Right.
that you see on Entertainment Tonight and all this type of stuff, that you have to have all the gossip.
Yeah.
Well, if they're the ones sitting with me for an hour and they're telling you, well, this is how life really is,
Right.
it humanizes them. And then if they get to then talk to the celebrity in person, and they realize, wow, he's a just normal, cool guy or
Right.
a great person, then it changes the dynamic of the relationship. It creates a tighter fan.
Right.
But because of that, I want to give full access to the independents to do the same thing,
Yeah.
to be able to have that relationship and have that fan be tighter and be able to do it in a quicker way than to have to wait for you to be interviewed on some major television network.
Right. Right.
And so, in essence, the idea is to sneak in and become another major television network without even using satellite or any of that stuff. Just be
Love
direct
that.
access to them.
I love that, man. I love it. And I think that I mean, I don't think I know. I mean, I, like I said, had Time Warner here working on internet, and went to the apps on my smart TV. I was like, wow, I can't believe how many apps are available on Samsung's. I mean, it's
Right.
crazy. So, like, that is the direction that this world is going toward. Is what's OTT stand for?
Over the top.
Over
So
the top.
basically,
Thank you.
yeah. So basically, it's those little boxes or things that you can connect. We're going over. We're basically circumventing satellite and cable companies and all that in between stuff, which raises the cost of everything.
Yeah, sure
Um,
does.
and then just going through the internet and distributing directly. So that's the opportunity. The opportunity is to, just like what we're doing, is an opportunity to reach the public. Well, here we're doing it for free,
Right.
but with OTT, there's costs involved.
Yeah.
But then give one of the dynamics that's occurring is that cable is indeed dying. Video advertising is switching. If you look at the top content providers that people watch, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, soon Apple,
Yeah.
none of them are commercially, you know, supported. In other words, there's
Right.
no ads. So advertisers are freaking out. Like, where are we going to put our ads? How are we? That's where marketing, all the marketing stuff they see on your timeline, is a big deal because there's a new way to access the public, and it's
Yeah.
not through commercials anymore. It's not through radio anymore. It's not through, print as much.
Right.
Um, and opportunities for channels like me is to say, hey, look, I got a whole new world here with all new actors and movies
Yeah.
and music and stuff like that. And we're not going to be as easily supported as Netflix and Hulu
Yeah.
because people are paying subscriptions for that. So you can put ads in our platform and hopefully allow growth of the platforms in that way.
I mean, I've seen, I look at, I follow some celebrities, not a whole lot, but I follow some on Facebook, and I see some of them doing Facebook lives just to keep attention on themselves, right? Grant Cardone is a friend of mine, and Grant's constantly, I mean, he beats the crap out of it, right? So like
Well, he built a studio and everything. Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
yeah, and again, I mean, it's really I personally believe that there has never, ever, ever been a better time in the history of mankind to become known if you want to become known.
Yes, but it has to be done in a way. Right
Yes.
now, we're living in the gray, right?
Yes.
So we're
Yes.
we're in the middle of a transition. So the way I like to speak about this transition is that we are the reverse of history in terms of broadcasting.
Yeah.
So looking back in the day, in the let's say 40s, 50s, when
Yep.
TV was black and white, most TV shows were live. I
Right.
Love Lucy was shot real time
Yep.
and broadcasted real time. Over time, they developed the technology for videotape, improved on it, creating episodics where you can record the show and then show it after the fact.
Right.
And that created new TV series and different stuff like that. But back in the day, it was all soap operas and all that type of thing.
Yeah.
And then of course it went into color and then all sorts of broadcasting. But when the internet started, it was the reverse. The speed wasn't high enough for us to do live,
Right.
so you couldn't have your live soap operas and the live shows and stuff like that. So it had to start off in reverse. You started off with the recording first,
Yeah.
and then we went into live. So it's a mirror version of what occurred in regular broadcast.
Yeah.
But what
I
that does is it creates a great history, though, to follow in terms of where the future of that may go. And that's where we're falling in place. We're using that gray area of this transition of TV dying and being reborn in a different format. We're taking that gray area and then solidifying it with a brand new thought process and format.
I think that and that I've seen a lot. What are those infographics? I've seen some really cool. In fact, we one I my designers, we sat down one day and we lit. I have one. We created one. This is 3 or 4 years ago, so it's changed significantly in 3 or 4 years. 4 years ago, Facebook wasn't doing Facebook Lives. There was no such thing. 4 years ago, it was Periscope and some of these other things that Twitter bought Periscope. I mean, there's just and I love it. I created the very first video walkthrough video of a real estate property in Columbus, Ohio. It was the very first one in, I forget what year it was, but this realtor had to sell a house, right? And it was sitting on the market for 8 months, but she was getting all kinds of traffic from her website. And I'm like, why don't we just throw a little video? And she's like, how do you do that? And I had to create a flash video. I made it a flash video. I mean, but you mentioned Real Player a little bit ago. I remember
A
all
long time
that.
ago.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
dude, it's crazy how far. And if people understood the actual, we're sitting here talking about Real Player and Flash, and if people really understood the technology changes since those days, even
Mm-hmm.
like it's mind blowing. It's just mind blowing.
So even now, for example, one of the technologies that I'm offering that we're just releasing is a technology that will reduce the latency. So for example, here we're talking
Yeah.
comments show up, we don't see everything until 30 seconds later as far as a response.
Yep.
The technology will reduce latency and reduce costs. So what we're trying to do is participate in the game of this technology by offering it to Netflix and offering it to Facebook and offering to, and which we're doing. We're in the process of doing all that now.
Wow.
Um, and that's basically my elevator speech is to basically recreate a different entertainment industry without the entertainment industry. So by use of technology, we're capable of doing that from the ground level up. I mean,
Wow.
right now, there's no money right now where I'm trying to look for investors to go to the next phase of what we've done. We've already released the platforms. So now the money is to develop programming and shows and TV shows and get filmmakers and be as supportive as possible to the next generation of artists. And part of the reason we believe in it so much is because that's basically what Netflix has done. That's
Right.
basically what Amazon has done. They're all independent. The majority of the content that's being created are people who were not Hollywood majors, and yet they're creating content that's just as interesting. So that proves that there's more talent than what Hollywood will permit to go out there. And my angle is the Latin market. Not so much in releasing content about Latinos, but to create product that's made by Latinos, whether it's in English or in Spanish.
Right.
And of course, in this market right now, we have a leadership that's kind of very divisive in that regard. So the
Mm-hmm.
most recent celebrity interviews that I've done were with Latinos in Hollywood who are, Isai Morales, who at the time was going after SAG-AFTRA as trying to go after be president of SAG-AFTRA,
Wow.
and we talked about that and why he wants to do it, and the fact that Latinos are so pushed down. They have to either be criminals or victims or drug dealers. They're never a leadership type of
Right.
role. Um, and that's a lot. That's the same in many many markets. The black market, which now we're having great filmmakers create like horror movies and stuff, things that you would never think,
Yeah.
but they have a social thought process behind it. And it's not about making a black film; it's about making a film that everybody loves, but understand why it was done in the way it was done because it's been so hindered before.
Right. Right.
Well, now because of this freedom of the internet, or although net neutrality threatens a lot of that, but that's a whole other conversation. Being able to show off true talents without the biases that occur in entertainment and otherwise.
Right. Right. Dude, I love it. I think there's a lot of really, really cool things that you're working on that actually, and you put I had it up here. Let me put it back up. The cya.live
Hmm.
is your website. And so what are some
Well, that's
things?
that's one of the websites, but yeah.
Yeah, well, put up anything that you want to put up there, and you can go back in and comment afterwards as well. But so you've so you were in Atlanta for many years. It sounds like.
Yeah, so about 18 years.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it ended up in divorce,
Okay.
but that's a whole other side of the story.
Yeah. 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 Well, we've been we've all been, not everybody, but a lot of people been through it, man. So you're not in Atlanta right now.
I'm back in New York,
Back in New York for a minute.
in the old apartment where I did all
Yeah.
the artwork and stuff like that.
Yeah. And you're putting together these platforms and doing a lot. Are you doing some consulting work too? It sounded like.
Yeah, so part of the consulting is the live streaming portion. So
Okay.
the strategy is to allow independent creators
Yeah.
access to the technology. So I sell basically all live streaming technology there is, almost every company that's out there, with the exception of what you're using, for example, like Ecamm.
Yeah.
But I can talk to them about that. And then we'll be releasing everything from doing production with iPads to doing productions with high-end equipment. Right now in the Caribbean, we're trying to help a company be like an ESPN over there.
Wow.
So that's about a about a $700,000 setup that we're working on,
Wow.
which is greatly less than the tens of millions that ESPN would have spent to do the same thing.
Sure.
Technology has changed the cost of everything. So, I sell red cameras and I sell new tech, TriCasters, and all that type of stuff. So that if a radio station calls, I had a radio station call yesterday, I can say, well, this is what the options are and offer that to them.
Right.
Then the consulting part is, well, look, I've worked in film and television. Let me teach you how to get all this done. I've built studios, I built sets, so let me help you build your studio. So basically, everything that you need to start creating your own TV show, and then say, look, this TV show is fantastic. I love it. You're the experts of that field. Let's
Yeah.
get you broadcasted.
Yeah.
Because everybody dreams about getting picked up by a label. Everybody dreams about being picked up by a network, except that's almost gone.
Right.
Let's not take the rights of you, the creator, away, because that's what happens once you get signed. They say, oh well, okay, now we like your idea, but let's change it to this. And there's disappointment, even though you're making the money.
Right.
If you
Yeah.
really believe in your creativity, we just want to give you the capability of doing what you wanted,
Yep.
owning it, and still making money off of it. And monetization is the core of every platform that we release. So it's basically better than going to YouTube and being lost in everything.
Yeah.
We want you to be looking professional right off the bat and giving you the full access of everything: interviews, radio play, streaming play, your own TV show,
Right.
and the ability to do it with all the technology
And,
and being taught how to use it.
and you don't own the rights to their content. And
I
and
don't want to
that's
own it. I don't
why,
want to own it.
right. And that's why you see a lot of these, the big stars, the big celebrities, Will Smith, a lot of these people will they'll start their own production companies. They'll start their own labels. Who was it? I have a friend over in Philadelphia that used to be on, one of the big rappers labels, and and I heard about this stuff where it's like, well, now there's this, he doesn't own the rights to his own music. It's on, so it's like,
Right.
so like,
So what we do is we do publishing rights.
Right.
But masters and all that stuff is owned by the artists themselves.
wow.
What we do is with the Orchid focuses on trying to get your music onto movies and feature films. We do that also with our platform. If we have an independent filmmaker that
Yeah.
loves your music, they can use it, and we handle all the licensing for that for them.
Yeah.
We also have sync rights or sync distribution, meaning that if anybody uses your music incorrectly or illegally on, let's say, YouTube, it'll be detected. But rather than like punish the podcaster or whoever's doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to put an ad in front of it and still allow the artist to make money off of that show, even though there was no permissions granted.
Nice. So I need to connect you with a couple. We talked about this before and I forgot. But we need to get you connected. Hank Norman and Steve Carlos at Two Market Media are a couple of people you need to meet, and they need to meet you. I don't know that anything could work out or not, but it sounds like you guys could probably do some stuff together.
Well, here's where it gets even better, and then I'll cut that really short. We just did on so Experience on Demand is the OTT platform.
Yeah.
XOD if you're on iPhone and Android and Apple TV and stuff. And we just did our first major boxing match. Now, so I'm one of the owners. The remainder of the owners are black gentlemen, former executives of Sony, and so together, I'm focusing on the Latin side. They're focusing on the let's say they focus on urban side and things of that nature. They want to be able to be a truly independently owned broadcasting network where there's multiple channels that are independently owned, and it's not, let's say, completely manipulated by, let's say, white thinking, so to speak. And so what we're doing is they just did a Floyd Mayweather. I'm sure people know who that is.
No, never heard of him.
And so Don King's son, they have their boxers do a championship matchup live on our platform.
Wow.
And so we're doing a lot of live on both the Experience on Demand platform and on the CETA platform.
Is that going to be like a pay-per-view, or is it a...
Exactly. So it was at the time, it was like 2 weeks ago, it was $11.99 to the public.
$11?
$11.99 for a boxing match. It was in Tennessee. in a
Wow.
major, venue,
Yeah.
the FedEx Stadium, or I don't know what they call it.
Yeah.
And it was a great fight, or a series of fights. There's a bunch of fights. Also female boxers too. And so that's another avenue that we're going after is sports. But we're not trying to get NFL. We're not trying to get in, all that type of stuff. We're trying to go for the sports that people don't get access to, where because technology costs less now,
Right.
they can afford to broadcast more. And then with my technologies, we have multiple ways of you accessing that. So on SIA, I would like to bring more sports where you can interact with live with the athletes,
Right.
with the announcers, and make that a very transparent type of technology and broadcast. Soccer
So,
games, cricket games,
but what
whatever it is that they want to broadcast.
what about us poor white people that want to be on there?
Oh, you skipped that again.
Oh, probably. And that can you hear me now?
Okay, so you said, what about ours? And then it's froze.
I said, what about us poor white people that want to be on there?
So here's the beauty of that. Um, I have no problem putting, let's say, a poor white person's show on, uh, because it's not about any kind of discrimination whatsoever. But what it is about collaboration. And if you
Right.
can have the urban market in your show and it's not being, discriminatory,
Yeah. Right.
then that'd be great.
Yeah.
We have second and third generation Latinos, and most of them don't even know Spanish.
Yeah.
But because of their last name, they're not getting picked up. They might be great writers, they
Uh,
might be great producers, but they're not getting the opportunity simply because of either their name or otherwise.
yeah.
Now, is that happening everywhere? No, but
No.
based on conversations with actual big names in Hollywood, it's happening to them and they're known. So if
Wow.
it's happening to them and they're known, you can only imagine if you're just a nobody yet still, what's going on with them there.
Well, yeah, and obviously there's also the exceptions to that. Will Smith,
Sure.
Spike Lee, people like that that have obviously made it regardless. So, but so you got a lot of stuff happening, man, and for me to wrap my brain around every single thing you've got going, I'm not sure I could do it in one show. But is there anything that you would like to offer to my audience? Anything that you have that may benefit somebody that's watching right now?
In terms of, well, okay, so I mean, if you're into live streaming, I got all sorts of types of equipment and technology and knowledge that I can share with you. I do intend to do some kind of a class to share what technologies could be used,
Yeah,
and then offer them whatever would fit into that time that package.
yeah,
So in livestreamingmaster.com is where I have a lot of the equipment and then access to myself where you can ask questions in respect to um, what you need to do if you want to do some type of content or a radio show or a podcast and things of that nature. Everything from lights to cameras to, if it's a church, if it's a school, if it's a university, an event place, we have everything for everybody, from bottom of the line to top of the line.
well,
Uh,
what's interesting is while we're sitting here talking about this, literally just now when you said church, I received a message from the girl at my church, and we're talking about live streaming and how to make it better and all of that. So you and I are going to talk about that. So
Absolutely.
I'm helping with all of that. So but dude, how can first off, let me say, because we're at the end of the hour, let me say thank you. I appreciate you coming on here and taking the time. I know you got a lot of gazillion things in the air that you're juggling. That's number one. Number two, I want to connect you with those two friends of mine over in New York. And number three, how can everybody follow you?
Well, I go live very often on Carlos Phoenix on Facebook,
Okay.
Instagram, Carlos Phoenix. Everything's Carlos Phoenix. But if you want to follow the businesses, Live Streaming Master is also on Facebook.
Okay.
So you'll see specials and ads and stuff like that there. I don't drown my timeline too much with that. And then you have beatflixmusic.com is if you're a musician and you want to get your music out there, we can have a conversation there. And then latinentertainmentnetwork.com is for the Latinos who are creative, who maybe have product already, TV shows, podcasts, you know, all sorts of content. We can talk about distribution and stuff like that as well, and what their future could be like.
Wow, that's awesome, dude. Well, Carlos, tell everybody your real name. Your full name, your
So,
full name.
so the full name, it's and then even my parents don't call me this, but it's Juan Carlos Phoenix Mark Jimenez.
There you go.
But I normally the basic names are Juan Carlos Jimenez, and my mom calls me Juan Carlos, but I
Wow.
just go by Carlos.
Yeah. So I can't even say it, so, let alone
Yeah,
remember
we
it.
didn't even get to the story as to why, but you know,
Yeah.
maybe another day.
Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on and spending the time and sharing some of your life story with everybody, and you definitely got a lot of cool stuff happening, and I love what you're doing. I know that, I reached out to you about 2 days before that event in
Yeah.
Thailand with my client over in Thailand. We just didn't have enough time to put it together, but I know you could have solved the issue fairly quickly. So,
That, and I mean, there's still an opportunity to take, because I know
yeah,
they recorded it.
yeah,
There's an opportunity to still be able to distribute that.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time,
My
and
pleasure.
don't hang up on Skype, but thank you guys. Thank you to everybody that shared this out, that's been on here watching. Appreciate all of you, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Mañana. Is that right? Did I say that right?
Yeah, no, exactly.
All right, cool. Thank you guys. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.